You need to contact them and make them a lead. You're gonna have a discovery call. The deal needs to be underwritten.
The whole goal is freedom, really. Like
Yes.
financial freedom, whatever that looks like. Yeah.
I'm a real estate investor. I'm sharing everything I know about Subject To in a way that complete beginners understand. This guy is John Pratt, our fearless novice, diving headfirst into the world of Subject To real estate deals. Watch as I start him on the path. I'm your guide, Kyle Karges, and this is Subject To Real Estate Secrets, the path from moron to millionaire. Some people watching their goal might not to be even ever to own these properties themselves. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too. So you are underwriting it though for all the different, what we call exit strategies.
Yes.
Okay, exit strategies would be called how are you gonna get out of the deal, more or less. And it would be like, is it gonna be an Airbnb? What are you gonna do with the property? Airbnb, long-term rental. And we'll talk more about that.
Sell it right away or something.
But you're checking the numbers for all of that to see what's possible. Okay? And guess what? Sometimes the answer is no, it doesn't work for any of them. 25% interest. It's probably not going to work out, John.
Yeah.
Okay? Or, hey, yes, I like this. It works for at least one of them. In your case, if you're trying to find one for yourself, it might be like, hey, this one might even work for me. Right?
Which would add some flex to
all
what's
of it.
acceptable.
Any answer that's yes, let's say you have a list of 10 exit strategies. The more that you say yes to, the more flexibility that gives you. One of those could be you being the buyer. So, but either way, you're going to underwrite for it and say, what do I know that this will work for? That's what this part is. On these other ones, I kind of put who might be there, right? And I know it's almost the same word, but here we'll put underwriter, okay?
Okay.
Because remember, I told you you're going to be doing this like a business.
Yeah.
Right? So we're thinking big scope. These are all the different pieces come through. Okay.
And do I want to be the agent? Do I want to be the acquisition? No, I do not want to be the everybody.
Okay. But do you see how
Yes.
you need all these pieces?
Yes.
John,
Totally.
we're not done yet,
No.
sir.
Oh, yeah.
We're not done yet. So here we go. That was underwriting. Now, let's say you underwrote this and it's a good deal. If it's a bad deal, you're just going to tell them sorry, right? But next step, okay? This made sense. Now you basically need to do your sales call. And this one definitely, right, needs to be, your sales guy. The whole goal here is, hey, we got through this. We know what the seller needs. We underwrote the deal. It makes sense to us. We need to jump on a call. And right here is, yes, you want it to be in alignment with what they need to, but you're trying to get that contract.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to say, hey, are we good?
The next thing after this is somebody signed something.
Exactly.
When you hang up this phone call, the
Bingo.
next action is somebody signed something. If these guys did very well, that makes this easier. That's not
yes,
that's
the
ideal.
better
It won't
job.
happen every time.
The better job here is if anything gets pushed through and it shouldn't, you're just wasting time.
You're gonna find out.
You're wasting
fast.
time down the road.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example,
it's more discovery, also, right?
Right. You're always discovering.
Like
right?
any sales.
So here's kind of that list going down, and then we'll kind of come down over here.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
So over here, I'm gonna put this is your purchase, right? Agreement. Here, you get on the sales call, you figure out whatever, it's a little bit of discovery because there could be, what if this person has a problem that you fully didn't understand?
And it never came out.
And it never came up here. It comes out here. In fact, in between episode 1 that we just shot and now, right, there was like a 30-minute gap. I actually had a 3-way call, right, with a real estate agent, the seller themselves, and me on a Google Meet, a video call. So they had started as a contact. We went through here. I got all this information. I did the discovery call. I underwrote the deal. And guess what? For this specific one, it didn't really work very well for most of the strategies. But I thought of one last thing I could do for it. Now I'm trying to do this sales call. And sometimes this is just with the real estate agent. Sometimes you add in the seller, etc. So I just did this sales call. Okay. It went pretty well. Okay. And now they're just talking about it real quick. And when I go check my phone, I might get a message that they're on board and it's time to go. Right? And that would be the purchase agreement. Every call is different. Sometimes, most of the time, I want to get a yes right here on the phone.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you push that over. You send it to them.
Exactly. But a lot of times when you're on a 3-way call, sometimes you're going to be like, hey, you're going to give them a chance to finish now that you gave them all the information, right? Yeah. I don't do a high stress sales type of thing. I'm purely trying to be in alignment with people. information and they choose me. There are so many deals to go buy and get, John, that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just trying to help people. Now they tell you, yes, you have to go get a purchase agreement. Now, with that said, who's going to be doing that? Who's going to be filling that out, John?
Who's going to be creating it?
Yeah. Doesn't it have to be written, created? If you go out and try to do this all by yourself with nothing, go grab a piece of paper and that's all you have. You'd probably have to go hire an attorney, have him draw up a whole contract.
You could rip someone else's, but it won't make sense for you.
It might not make sense for you. Yeah. Now, the nice part is you could also, though, work with somebody that has some blank agreements, right? Kind of pre-written, et cetera, that work for this type of thing. And so there are different ways, right, that you can definitely get these type of agreements. Okay? So, and I will, being your guide, help you with that part. I'm not going to go make you go out and pay some attorney to write up these agreements. I have the agreements for you. But even then, what if I hand you this paper that's like mostly filled out with blanks? Someone has to fill it out, John.
Yeah. And understand it.
Understand it and make sure everything's done right. Okay, I'm going to put right here, TC. That stands for Transaction Coordinator.
I know that one. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you get on the sales call, you're like, hey, this is the deal. You either have to have a TC or do it yourself, but the paperwork needs to get filled out. Okay, guess what, guys? Even if they say yes here, you don't have a contract yet. This has to be filled out. Then you have to send it over to what? To the sellers, right? Or the agent. You have to get this filled out. When you get this filled out, the TC can help you fill out this paperwork sometimes. But your next step, right, is going to be, I'm just going to put transaction coordination all together right here. And I'm going to explain why.
Sure.
Okay. What do you have to open, John? Once you get a contract, have you bought the house?
No, you have to sign it and submit it.
Okay, so you have to sign it. Submit it where?
I don't freaking know.
Okay, so there's companies, they're called either closing attorneys in some states or title company. In Arizona, we use title companies. Okay, so you have to open escrow, and all that means is you're opening your file with them. You send in this purchase agreement. So maybe the TC helped you fill it out. Maybe you sent it over. You might even have to negotiate here, John.
With the TC?
So, sorry.
Or with the
good question.
Back and forth.
Maybe you did
like terms, like
correct.
Change the agreement.
Right. So before you get this all the way, part of this, you might have had to go up here, have the TC fill it out, you send it in, then it almost comes back a step because they're like, oh, well, we didn't like this.
What about clause number 42?
What about clause 42? Figure that out. Send it back. Oh, the purchase price, we need $5,000 more. You might be jumping back and forth here, John, a little bit, but at the end of the day, you get a final purchase contract and it goes to transaction coordination. Someone, a TC, a transaction coordinator, should be in charge on your team to make sure that the title company, the seller, everyone is being coordinated with properly. That makes sure part of this is you have to put in what's called earnest money. EMD, earnest money deposit. That might be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. What if you forget to send in the money?
Then nothing happens.
Then nothing happens and you'll lose the contract and the deal's shot. Your transaction coordinator is going to make sure you don't forget to send in the money. What if the seller has a question? The transaction coordinator can help answer it. Basically, anything that comes up between the buyer, the seller, the title company, all of these things right here, they have to be managed. These are things that would have to be done, but all of this should be managed by, once again, your TC.
Okay, the transaction coordinator.
The transaction coordinator should do all of this from your team.
Title company is not
they're a
vendor.
Third party.
They're just
they're just a vendor.
They're not on my team.
No, they're doing work, but there needs to be someone or you on your team checking in and making sure everything's being done appropriately.
That's huge.
One of the biggest mistakes. The good news is we're almost done, John. The last part is going to be disposition. Okay, to dispose. This is your exit strategy that I mentioned earlier. Okay,
disposition, like the receiving party of the deed. Go
disposition,
ahead.
Okay, which is your exit strategy. What are you going to do with the property?
Yeah, which hopefully you know a little bit about from when you
underwrote it. But now, which option are you going to choose, John? Is it going to be a rental for you? Are you going to do an Airbnb? Are you going to wholesale, which means selling it to somebody else, right?
Somebody else, an end user or
an
investor?
So say you contracted it, you were going to be the buyer, but under here, you're like, you know what? It's a deal, but like, I actually don't want to be the one buying that. You could sell your contract to somebody else and a new end buyer steps in your place.
And they're not because I always thought wholesaling was like to some investor. It could be, I guess.
Yeah, could be another investor.
Okay.
It could be to anybody. Bottom line is you would have a contract for a certain price and all the terms that come in there. For example, let's say I did this in my business and I get down to here and I go, John, I have this property. Instead of you doing all of this, how about you just pay me $10,000 and I'll just hand you one that I already did all this.
Huge for them and for me. Right. Yeah.
Who would do that, John? What type of investor might want to do that? Be the buyer of a wholesale deal.
Anytime someone's going to flip, I guess.
What if you don't have time to do all this? If you don't want to create this business, right? This is taking a little while to explain all this, right? But the point is, there's a lot of pieces to this, and that's the last piece.
Yeah, anyone who doesn't want to do all this
Anyone that doesn't want to do all this is willing to pay the $10,000 to $20,000 to skip the line.
Their alternative is to either not have the house, or if it's an end user, their alternative is to
pay for the service.
I'm saying if they don't pay for the service, then they're going to have to get a bank loan to get a house or rent forever.
Sure, but it's still not a deal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you just go get a bank loan and find someone on the MLS, it's not going to be, this whole point of jumping through this is to get a deal either by price or by term.
So it's essentially off market.
Yeah, either off market, could be on market, but you're finding the deals though that way. The main summary, as a quick recap, right? You have to know what list to pull. Mm-hmm. Who are you even going to try to contact? You need to contact them and make them a lead. You're going to have a discovery call. The deal needs to be underwritten. A sales call needs to happen. Once you go and get all the details figured out, you need to get a contract written up. Transaction court, you have to manage the transaction, and then you have to decide and deal with finding a buyer, buying it yourself, or etc.
Let's say you wholesale it to an end user.
Yep.
Does the title company facilitate that, or is that a whole new transaction?
Nope. So if you're down here trying to dispose of it and you're going to wholesale it, you can let your TC know and the title company know, and that buyer. I have one this next week in Alabama. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a new end buyer stepping in, and my TC is helping communicate.
That's
now,
huge.
All of a sudden, there was only people here that were involved in the transaction, and now a new end buyer was added to the mix of this.
They're presumably going to live there in the house.
Could live in the house, or could be another investor that wants to run it. Mine is going to be an investor that wants to run Airbnb. So he's stepping in. He's willing to pay, the $12,000 fee, right? Because we did all this work. At the end of the day, those are all the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. Mm-hmm. And guess what, John? Someone has to be in charge of each step.
Yeah.
So, do you think if you want to start your own business, which is what you're doing right now, are you hiring 8 people?
Right away?
Yeah.
No,
right? Know. Can you, right? Can most people go out and afford to hire a specific person to be in charge of all of that?
No.
Each individual position
Unless
right away?
Have runway.
Unless they have a lot of money saved up in runway, right? So I agree with you. Most people can't do that. If you had a lot of money, sure, you could do that. If you're getting brand new into this business and you don't even know what you're doing, are you going to be able to manage 8 people, John?
Okay, no. It's
and be able to tell them what to do and do a good job? No. Okay. So on top of this, there was more we can talk about, but the next question is, John, and people watching, but for you, John, what are you going to be in charge of?
So I'll eliminate some things.
Okay, go ahead.
Just based on my personality, whatever. Okay. Like what I would not want to do.
Okay.
I would not want to be in charge of TC.
Okay. So you don't want to be in charge of TC.
I happen to know I've heard the term TC.
Okay.
So I assume it's common enough to have an acronym.
So then for both of these steps, you don't want to be necessarily filling out the contracts and doing all that.
It's too technical for me. And I know there's people way better at it than I.
Okay.
Lead gen, it takes a lot of time. And there's a plethora of people who can do it for me for relatively cheap, a fair price. Right, to do that. So I wouldn't want to do. So I'm eliminating TC. I'm eliminating lead gen.
You don't want to do the lead gen part.
I live here somewhere. Okay. Here somewhere and here, right? Because once I have the property, that's where a lot of other work begins.
Yes.
And I'm happy to live there too.
Okay, got it. So you feel like once you found a deal, if you had to go try to find an end buyer, this is really easy if you're the end buyer.
Sure.
You don't have to find anybody, right? But also if you're the end buyer, guess what? If it's a rental, you have all the work of managing the rental forever.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
That's a whole other thing, right?
Which I'm happy. I would happily live there for a little. I'd happily live in that space mentally.
Got it.
To manage the rental.
So you want to nix those.
Yeah.
Okay. You're thinking right now, just because of cost, you might nix this from you doing it.
Yeah. It would be cheaper for me to pay someone to do that.
Yeah.
Than to do it myself.
Well, no.
Like
it's
cheaper,
always cheaper for you to do it, John.
Cheaper in the end. Like my time is more valuable elsewhere.
Okay. So you want to maximize your time. Yeah. Right? You want to be in the right position.
Yes. Maybe I should flesh some of that out.
Very interesting.
Like on the show here is a whole goal is freedom, really. Like financial freedom, whatever that looks like. That looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But time freedom. So I'm happy to eventually pay everyone to do everything. It's expensive, but it's still good margin.
You're managing the system, John.
Yes.
That's what in the business. You're managing the business eventually.
Yeah.
If you or anybody else, this would be the goal. All these pieces are there regardless.
Yeah, they're there. They have to be worked.
They have to be there because they have to go through.
Yeah.
Whether you have somebody or yourself do it is the question.
Different story.
For you or someone else, you might not even be able to do it. It either might not mix with your personality.
Yeah.
You might not be good at it. And John, do you think you could be good at all of it?
No.
Okay. Most people can't. And even if you might be good enough to do it all by yourself, people talk about this. Have you ever heard about people like, hey, wearing different hats?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hey, I wear all the hats. Guess what I did for a lot of my career? Wearing all the hats. But do you think if I'm wearing all the hats and I'm getting a little bit better at underwriting and I'm spending time and I'm underwriting getting better, am I spending time doing sales calls at the same time?
Probably not.
No, I can't be practicing both.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm like, oh, I'm doing underwriting. Okay. Well, I know I'm starting brand new. Let's say it's you. You might be at 0% here, right?
Yeah.
Of your skill set of underwriting. Every time you underwrite and the more you do, right, that's going to go up, right, over time. Well, you have to spend time and effort doing that. If you're doing that, you're still over here at 0% on the sales part. Okay. So when you start, you're going to be at like 0% on all these, John.
Yeah.
When a thing goes through if something's at skill set of 0%, what's the chances of that going well?
That portion will go 0%.
0%.
Yeah.
So you might work really hard here, John.
Yeah.
Come all the way down, and then you hit 0%, you lose it.
So that's 100% chance of the deal failing right there at that point.
Now what, John? What if you worked really hard here? What if you were really good at sales?
Okay.
Is anyone ever 100%? No.
I mean, let's just say
100%.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, John, you are amazing at this, but you suck.
Yeah.
At lead gen.
Then it'll break down before I ever get a call.
Do you even get to have that conversation?
There is no call.
There is no call.
Yeah.
There is no conversation. So actually, you have to make sure when people are worked in real estate, and a lot of people watching this right now, this is the problem. They are coming down here. They're either getting really bad leads. Their list might be horrible. And they're trying to get leads out of a list that's horrible.
That'll poison the whole process.
And they might be like 75% effective here. Their leads is 0 or 5%. And they're so frustrated because they can't get a deal. They need to fix this.
Yeah.
Higher up, the steps higher up, you have to fix and make sure it's going, because the later doesn't even matter.
They discover the problem here, and this happens everywhere, dude. They discover the problem just, at this point in the process.
Yep.
They conflate discovering the problem with where the problem is.
Yes.
So I can't close any of my leads.
Correct.
Okay, that might be because you suck at sales, but it might be.
It might be because they were never a lead to begin with. Yeah. And you didn't even have this, check these boxes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to be talking a lot more about this. That'll be enough for this episode. I wanted people to see the overall view, right? Absolutely, right? People screenshot this thing, right? John, right? I'm going to leave this up so you take a picture as well. Okay. You need to understand the whole process, how it works, and that really someone has to do this job. In the next episode, John, we're going to leave this up.
Okay.
For the next episode. Okay. The next episode, what we're going to talk about is we need to know exactly what you're going to be doing. Okay, right? And if you're not doing it, who's doing the things you don't want to do? Okay. That should be all decided and known up front, not just if you're doing this to just start doing that, because what is the freaking point? Wasted effort.
Yeah. Okay? I mean, there will be some reps, right?
Sure. Your skill set might go up, you're not making any money, and I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. Okay. Your little motivation. I told you in some other episodes, you had this baseline motivation. I told you would fail. That type of frustration kills, and doesn't matter what baseline motivation you have. Okay. So there you go, everybody.
Yeah.
So your homework.
Okay.
Between now, write this down. Between now and the next episode, is to familiarize yourself more with this overall process. I want you to come up with questions, okay, about this process, whether it's about who's doing it or what is being done in each category. And we will answer some of those questions on the next episode.
Okay.
And I want the second part of that is going to be, I want you to really take the next step of, you just quickly listed some areas that you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
I want you to really think on your own, where do you want to be? Okay. What part is John Pratt going to do? Because of your skill set, because of your personality, etc. I want everyone watching to do the same thing, and we will meet up in the next episode. Thanks, John.
Awesome. Thank you.